So anyways, I just realized that I've had my mic muted this whole time. I hate this new thing. I hate this new format, this new OBS Studio thing. Whatever. Spoilers! For those of you not aware, spoilers, 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 spoilers. I had some technical issues with the background, which I never actually fixed, funny fact. And then someone started doing the lawn because it's a nice Saturday morning, so I've got the music going to try and help mask the lawn mowing. Hopefully that'll help. But this is your big warning that there's infinite spoilers. There's just going to be nothing but a massive stream of endless spoilers coming at you from all directions. You will be buried in spoilers, literally drowning in them. Spoilers. That's why this is here. I thought about making this more obvious and actually having a spoiler, you know, as in on a car going here. But honestly, I think this is much more appropriate because when most people think of spoilers, in my experience, they think of two things: Darth Vader and this stupid sled. So, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Okay, so, now that I'm done talking about spoilers. Funny fact, I was trying, if anybody, I was trying to look up a good interpolation plugin, basically, for Media Player Classic, and couldn't find one. The one I found was god-awful. It was like, alright, I mean, it worked. It worked actually great. The problem was that this is a looping video I've got going on in the background. And so it's like, and then it would finish the loop and it would be like, and it would just stall for like 2 seconds before, there we go. And it would continue again. Ridiculous. And then I found another one which was supposed to work, which made the entire screen green. Like literally, it just turned the whole video green. It was the weirdest thing. So if anybody knows a good interpolation filter, please feel free to let me know, because this 23 frames per second drives me crazy. Anyways, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. I think that's enough spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. We're 3 minutes into this. If you aren't aware by now, if you're watching on the YouTube or the rewatch, or if you're just streaming in or whatever, I mean, it's in the title. I put spoilers in the title. You have been warned. Now, I gotta say something before we get into anything else, and then I'm gonna want to ask you guys' opinion. So first of all, I liked Batman vs. Superman. Go ahead, hate me. I really don't care. I liked it. I actively enjoyed Batman vs. Superman. I found it to be fun, interesting. Made me think a couple of times. Was a bit whacked out a couple of times. It had its flaws, and I'm not going to try and say it is a flawless movie because I'm not a moron. But yeah, I rather enjoyed it. I actually kind of sort of... Man of Steel was a movie that I felt was acceptable. Like, I watched Man of Steel once, and there were a couple of good scenes, and there was some good stuff on display, but ultimately Man of Steel was a movie that I felt I really had no desire to watch twice. The only reason I watched Man of Steel a second time was my sister wanted to watch it, so I watched it with her. So, I wanted to get that out there right off the bat, because I already have liked the new DC movies. You know, I'm already on board with this stuff. So then Wonder Woman came out. Yes, I liked it. I'll stop delaying. I'll stop stalling. I did, in fact, enjoy Wonder Woman. What's funny, though, is I both enjoyed it more and less than I did Batman vs. Superman. No, SJ. Anyone ever see Return of the Jedi? Good question. Anyone ever heard of Return of the Jedi? It's this thing called the Wars of Stars, I think, or something like that. It's where a bunch of Hollywood celebrities get together and just beat the crap out of each other. It's really fun to watch. It's really popular right here. Especially in Japan. Now I gotta wait. When I was going back... I mean, I've always kind of had this opinion, but when I went back for the ruminations... it kind of became more apparent to me the really big differences between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. To reiterate my points very, very quickly, in my opinion, Empire Strikes Back was solid gold all the way through. Return of the Jedi was diamonds in the rough. In other words, when it was great, it was amazing. But when it was bad, it was like, what is this crap? My opinion, of course. I'm telling you, if it had been Wookiees. Anyways, so that's kind of how I felt about this film, because the good in this film made me just go, yeah! I mean, all four of us, as we're sitting there watching it, we're just like, yeah! And we had a receptive audience, too, which was great. And there was applauding and cheering, and there were good moments, and we laughed, and it was just awesome! And then there were the other moments. Now, they weren't, like, face-palmingly terrible, but they kept taking me out of it. It's like, I felt like I was on this really awesome roller coaster, like, yeah! And every now and again it would just stop. And there'd be this voice on the announcer, hang on, we need to stop the ride for a few seconds. Just give a moment. That's how some of those scenes felt. Most notably, the damn slow-mo. I know, Zack Snyder. But the slow-mo started driving me crazy by the end. I started taking note, mentally, of every fight scene that didn't involve excessive use of slow motion. Da-da-da-da. They did the other thing. I don't actually remember what it's called. There's a term for it. A professional term for it. I can't think of the name of it. When they do slow, and then really fast, and then back to slow, and then really fast. It's Zack Snyder uses it all over the place, which is funny because he didn't direct this movie. Still felt like a Zack Snyder, but so many of the fight scenes, I felt like I was watching 300 again. Drove me crazy. Now, I actually agree with Luxia. The actual choreography on quite a few of the fights was amazing. Why are you showing it to us in slow motion? God damn it, I wanted to shake the film editors. What are you doing? There's even a great scene where incredibly, like they use time, they spend time establishing how incredibly skilled these Amazons are. Bred for war, and like constantly, skilled and training and all that fun stuff, and they're just doing all this amazing stuff. And then some guys with guns start killing them. I mean, the guys with guns lost, but I liked the fact that guys with guns could beat Amazon. Something about that just clicked with me. I was like, oh, yes! Yes! I was actually too worried that they would have, like, this entire regiment of German troops show up at the shores of, I can't remember the name of the island right now, and just get wrecked, and instead they actually killed quite a few Amazonians. They did that a lot. I noticed. They did that a lot. A lot of the movie followed very typical beats in its narrative arc, but every now and again they just do something really smart, narratively speaking, and it just kept making me go. Like someone who was a really good director or a good editor just did like a what I call a polishing pass over the movie. I was like, why don't we do this there? That I agree with that, Luxie. That was the one and only use of slow-mo that I tended to work with. Well, you say that, Leander. How many times in fiction have we seen guys with guns have been wrecked by people who are magic? How many times? That is such a common thing. It's actually a cliche over on Doctor Who, for example. That the bad guy of the week is immune to guns. It's one of the most common ways they use to say, oh, by the way, this is a villain. You know what? Why they're a villain? Because they're immune to guns. So, I like that. I like that. I also like how... Well, actually, before I go any further, what did you guys think? Like, any thoughts you guys want to toss out there before I start talking about my stuff? Is this Superman weak to magic? No idea. No idea. Superman wasn't really into this. Or wasn't really in this, and magic wasn't really in BVS or in Man of Steel. So we have no idea if this Superman is weak to magic. Hey, Hayden. Yeah, as Luxie points out, this is World War I era rifles. Terrible. Terrible guns. The ice cream scene. I loved the ice cream scene. I forget how she says it, but this is really good. You should be really proud of this. And it's just like vanilla soft serve. I've never had anything like this before. Nom. I love that. I agree. I definitely agree it stayed more on point than BVS did. Yeah, exactly, Prog. Oh, it's a baby! No, this one isn't made of clay. Oh my god, Next Level Games. Really? Really? A superhero movie about racing? Well, we already had that, but of course it was done by those people. The boat scene. Which boat scene? Oh, when they're. Are you not going to sleep with me? No, usually you don't sleep with someone unless you're married. What's marriage? Well, you get in front of the vows. By the way, I can't think of the actor's name, and it kept driving me crazy. Kirk, the guy who played him, nailed it, in my opinion. He hit that perfect blend of like 4 different things. I'm sorry, he was one of the highlights of the film for me. Chris Pine, thank you everyone. Chris Pine just freaking nailed it as far as I'm concerned. Great example. He was kind of that, I don't want to talk about it. I'm still asking you guys your opinion, but I really loved his stuff. Wow, he nailed it. And of course, I don't know her name either, but the actress who played Wonder Woman also nailed it. I'm sorry, she did a perfect presentation of, she was a badass, of course. But in my opinion, I really don't want to get into politics on this, but this is just my opinion from a narrative perspective. I don't know how to pronounce that. Gal Gadot? In my opinion, too often writers will sit down with the intent, I've talked about this in Voyager, with the intent of writing a strong female character. Now, I'm not against strong female characters. We've actually had quite a few really good strong female characters over the years in fiction. What I don't like is, A, when a writer sits down to write a strong female character, which almost always trips it off before it even leaves the gate, and B, when the only way most writers know how to write a strong female character is by writing a guy who happens to have boobs. She didn't do that. And I like that. She was actually a strong female character who was awesome. There were layers to her. She was still definitely female. And as in written as if she was a female character, in other words, as opposed to a guy who happened to be played by a woman. She was a frickin' badass. She had wonderful humanization moments that really helped flesh her out as a character, other than the badass thing, which is another thing some people trip over. She had layers, she had depth. I know, right, Roaring? I've seen so many critics just about this movie. But yeah, the movie never smacks you in the face with the fact that she's a woman, unlike Janeway, which they did early in Season 1 of Voyager, which was one of my biggest complaints of Season 1 Voyager, Janeway. Hey, Strider, what's up? Spoilers everywhere. But yeah, I love how she was awesome. I love how he was awesome. There were lots of little moments. I'm sure you guys noticed. The first one that comes to my mind immediately is the 3 members of the plucky comic relief squad, who also received some decent characterization in the film, are all sitting over there, and the Germans are advancing, and they're like, I need another round. And the other guy is just like, I don't have any more rounds. And there's like a second pause, and the 3 of them just huddle together and start hugging each other. They don't explain it. They don't sit the camera on there poignantly. You just realize that 3 friends are about to die, and they wanted to spend their last moment holding each other. There's so many little scenes like that throughout the film that was just, this is what I mean by every now and again they just did things right, you know what I mean? Just little bits all over the place in the film. Tons of stuff. One of my sister's favorite scenes was, this is going back to the comedy thing, was when she was trying to go through the revolving door, holding the sword and shield very awkwardly. Like, okay. No. I want to do it myself. Yeah! God, where do I start? There's so many good things about this movie to talk about. Let me talk about the twist really quick. Let's get that out of the way. Let's get the twist out of the way. So this is your final warning for spoilers, okay? If you want us to go see this movie, go friggin' see this movie. If you don't, or you've already seen it, feel free to stay with us for the moment. So, I don't remember the name of the actor. It's like David something, I think. But he's the guy who played Remus Lupin over in Harry Potter 3, the movie. For those of you not aware, I actually just last week did a rumination analysis on Harry Potter 3. Recorded it, I should say. That's coming out next month. And, David Thewlis, thank you. So, yeah, I was recording that. And so, now, obviously, every time I kept seeing him, I'm like, oh my god, it's freaking Lupin. So I kept mentally referring to him as Lupin. Anyways, the first scene he showed up, where he stalls, and he turns over and looks at Wonder Woman, I was like, oh my god, it's Ares! I'm not even kidding. That was my first gut reaction, was, oh my god, it's Ares, because of the way he reacted to her, and because of the fact that he was played by David Thewlis. Those two facts made me think, oh, it's him. Now, what's funny, you're probably about to make fun of me, is as we were going through the rest of the film, I started not having that opinion. Like, that opinion started slowly going away until it got to the point where I presumed that was the lady, I can't think of her name, Dr. Poison, was actually Ares. And Sis and I both were discussing this back and forth quietly because she was sitting right next to me, and she's like, and we're like, yeah, no, it's totally Ares. She's totally Ares. Because none of the four of us thought for even a second that, you know, General Obviously Evil was Ares. Not even for a millisecond did we think that was him. And then, of course, it's him, and then I'm like, I knew it! And Sis is like, no, you didn't. We said it was her. And I'm like, I'll explain later. That, it makes perfect sense, though. As absolutely bizarre as that sounds, it makes perfect sense for me for Ares to be on the British side of World War I. I'm not even going to go into the whys and the wherefores, but yeah, that was a nice touch. I like that. And just to be blunt, I really liked how David Thewlis played Ares. I really did. Now, of course, I like him as an actor in general. You know, I am a bit of a fan of his, but the way he came across was just like it was a well presented, well acted, fairly typical villainous situation, and I think that's where I went with that. Oh God, roaring! That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because they did introduce that. Yeah, also, speaking of which, General Ludendorff, I can't remember the actor who plays him. He's actually pretty much universally plays a villain character as well. He was over in the X-Men series in a similar role. He was also interesting to me. I think... So, getting to Zawun's question. Yes, he played Stryker. Getting to Zawun's question. Did the Germans were evil? Actually, only 2 Germans in the whole film are portrayed as messed up evil. General Ludendorff, who was just ridiculously evil, and Dr. Poison, who was mentally unstable, is the best way I could put it. The kind of person who is completely detached from reality, kind of a person. And what I find equally funny about her is that it's made very clear, especially in hindsight, that she would never have gotten anywhere if not for the fact that Ares was just kind of, hey, by the way, why didn't you do this? You remember the scene where the little bit of paper just kind of flits over and she's like, oh, hey, what's this? Oh, of course, this makes so much sense, you know. Yeah, Ludendorff, yeah. Murdering most of his own cabinet to try and delay the armistice talks. I have to admit I laughed. Please, I'm not evil. For those of you who haven't seen the film, there's a scene where Ludendorff tosses one of the mega gas grenades into a room full of his own cabinet members, his own generals and soldiers, and then tosses in one gas mask and locks the door. Now, obviously that's one of those, haha, you're gonna have to fight each other for the gas mask situations. The extra layer of cruelty on that is that the gas mask won't help. It'll just eat... The whole point of this gas, the whole point of this new superweapon, is it is a new gas that will go through gas masks, that it will melt and destroy gas masks. That's the whole purpose of this new superweapon. That brings me to another point. I know this sounds weird, but I like how this film portrays the Great War. Because it's not glorious. You know, it's not grand, it's not epic. It's messed up. It's just really, really messed up. One of the most common recurring themes of the film is seeing the victims of the war. And we see it at every level. We see people back home. We see civilians. Okay. We see civilians back home, soldiers back home, leaders back home, soldiers on the front, civilians on the front, soldiers in the trenches, families of the soldiers in the trenches. We see so many different freaking layers, so many different perspectives of just how many lives were ruined or destroyed by the Great War. It's probably my favorite thing about the whole film, in all honesty. I know that sounds horrible, but they portrayed it just as horrible as it should be. Like, they didn't get really nitty-gritty with how gory and unpleasantness, but they didn't hold any punches either. There's a wonderful scene. There's a brilliant scene where they're getting on the train. That's when the ice cream thing happens. They're getting on the train, and there's all these people like, yeah, we're going to war, woo! And there's people, hugging people and giving kisses and saying their goodbyes, and there's just, the tone is up, right? Next scene, they have arrived at the front, they're getting off the train, and they start going across the bridge, and what's the first thing they see is the people who are going back home. In pieces. The contrast between those two scenes is brilliant. Just freaking brilliant. I'm sorry. It was just like, bam, right in the gut. And there's this wonderful bit where they're going through, and Wonder Woman, Diana, is exactly Lexi. I was gonna build up to that, but there's this wonderful bit where they're walking through, just getting up to the front lines, and she sees someone who's like injured. I have to go help them. No. That why are they hurting that horse? They need to get it out there quickly. Why is that person so? Nope. We have to keep going. And they just have to keep going. Come on. And she just wants so badly to stop and help the hundreds of people, hundreds of individual people who are screwed just by being in proximity to the war. It isn't until someone actually stops her and flat out says, please, they've taken us, they've enslaved us, nearby town, etc., that she finally was like, okay, I gotta do something about this. And it was totally flipping awesome watching Wonder Woman charge a machine gun trench line. I also like the fact that it wasn't easy, by the way. I mean, yeah, she kicked hella ass once they finally reached the town, but it shouldn't be easy charging a machine gun nest in a trench. And it wasn't. She was like, oh, okay, and they had to work together. They had to do the grenade. It was great teamwork. It was great teamwork, and I liked that. Oh god, the sniper towers. Yeah, no kidding, Roaring. Oh my god. And then so they take the trench, and then they just frickin' sweep through the town. Oh. And you know what my favorite part is? We have several scenes, like the movie takes about a 10-minute breather as we show all these people who are happy and saved, and they're dancing. The one gentleman, part of the squad, is singing for the first time in years. Diana and Chris Pine, actually accept that they like each other, and then they all die because they should. Because that was the Great War. What do you add to that? Oh, hey, it looks like the mowing has stopped. Let's go ahead and pause that now that the mowing has stopped. Yeah. Another thing I really liked that this film did was that there's a recurring element of Wonder Woman is the heavy of the team, obviously. But the other people were also a part of the victory, were a part of the success. I'm actually not sure, Roaring. I meant to check, but I don't actually have a copy of BVS handy to check. So I don't know. Someone who owns BVS, go check. See if Chris Pine was actually in the photo, or if they edited it. But yeah, there are a lot of scenes, especially towards the later end of the movie, where she's fighting her tier stuff, either Ares or pushing through or being the obvious Kong, and then Chris Pine is being, I love his portrayal of a spy, by the way. I like the fact, if I could pause for a second and segue, I like the fact that Chris Pine was, shall we say, an equal to Wonder Woman. I know that sounds like a weird statement, but what I mean by that is she was the heavy, right? She's the muscle, she's the strength, she's the incredibly badass warrior, which is an essential part of any significant team, right? He was the spy, and he was good at it. Like, he was really good at it. We only really get to see him properly spying, like, what, 3 times in the film? But each time, he nails it perfectly. Slides right into the role, has no problem portraying himself exactly how he needs to, completely convinces everyone around him. He does a very good job of being the spy. And he was very connected and very competent. And then the rest of the team had their own particular little uses, not quite as on the same scale as those two. But, yeah, he was very charismatic as well. And I like that. So yeah, there's a recurring element towards the end of the film that as she is up there dealing with, she's basically being the tank, to use an MMO term. She's up there dealing with the giant freaking boss that hits like a truck, while Chris Pine and, I'm sorry, I don't know any of their names, but all the other characters, they're all awesome, I just can't remember their names, are all doing their particular shtick to try and move forward. Nice little touch, by the way. I do like the fact that the sniper they got hardly shoots throughout the entire movie. At the beginning, it was like, oh, ha, ha, yeah, I'm going to totally shoot all these people, ha, 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 and I'm like, oh, God, it's a crazy psychopath sniper. No, he was actually a pretty decent guy. They did a good job with that. But anyways, so yeah, he was pretty much the scout. Kept looking, okay, there's this thing here, and then there's this thing here, and then there's this thing here, right? He was able to keep them up to date, and okay, we need to go this way. There was the sniper situation, which they helped her to reach. I'm not going to go over every single step, but there were quite a few moments where the normal guys were relevant too, and I like that. It is harder. I thought that too, Roaring, but it's not Simon Pegg, obviously. It's harder than it sounds to write a story where you have someone on the power level of Wonder Woman and still make the normal guys relevant. So, applause to them for actually pulling that off. So yeah, Chris Pine's final scene. That was powerful. I have absolutely no shame in admitting that one actually hit me. That one brought me to tears. And I knew they weren't going to cop out on it, too. The whole tone of the movie, the whole pace of the movie was that, no, he was going to die. He was going to die a hero. And he did. Yeah. God. Yeah. I'm honest. I'm sorry. Chris Pine sold every scene. He really did nail it. I haven't even mentioned the fish out of water comment yet, but I just want to talk about this really quick. Yeah, exactly, Roaring. Exactly. It would have been too easy to do one of two things. It would have been too easy to have him just immediately, all right, we're up. It would also have been too easy for him to try and cower out or be like, oh, I don't want to do this, or take too long, or oh God, and have the clock running down, last minute victory. Instead, it was just him trying to come to grips with it, trying to accept what he has to do, and getting there emotionally, and then pulling the trigger and just boom. Anyways, the fish out of the water stuff. You notice there's 2 fish out of waters in this story, which is one of the things I like about it. Both Chris Pine and Gal Gadot are playing fish out of water characters, just in different ways. And both of them do it very, very well and manage to play off each other brilliantly. But what I like most about it is they didn't go Encino Man on it. Anyone ever seen Encino Man? Probably not. It's kind of an older film at this point. Encino Man was a film where there's a fish out of water, and it was so obvious and so overt that it was just kind of ridiculous. You know what I mean? It got kind of silly. Now, I actually kind of liked Encino Man, but I like it as a comedy. As a film to make fun of, basically. One of those. This is funnier. Gadot? I'm going to start calling her Diana. Is that cool? Cool. Okay, so Diana and Chris Pine. They did the fish out of water well, though. For every time she was lost at a particular concept, she was then capable of keeping up with things. Like, it never went over the top, in my opinion. It never got to the point where she was ludicrous. And there were several examples when she was portraying just someone who was intelligent, who wasn't stupid, who was just dealing with another culture rather than dealing with something completely alien. And that shading between different culture and completely alien is what most films fail at, because most films go straight for completely alien. Yeah, exactly, Nothrism. In this case, it was simply dealing with a different culture. I do like the scene where they're in there with the cabinet and the general and Ares, and she's like, "I can't believe this, and you're gonna stay back here. A soldier shouldn't be behind the blah blah." And she's just ranting at him, and Chris Pine's like, come on, please, please, come on, please, let's just go." And then they go out, and she's still ranting at him and strailing him. He's like, "Would you shut up?" Because it hasn't occurred to her to lie. At no point has it occurred to her that Chris Pine is going to go through with this anyways and is still going to try and fix this situation because he is someone who wants to do something about the Great War, who is appalled by the Great War and wants to actually accomplish something about it. So it never occurs to her that he's lying. He's just like, and he has to get the truth lasso around him. Like, look, we're doing this. We're going to the front. Oh, and we're probably going to die. Oh, God, we're going to die. I like it. I like her presentation a lot. God, I'm going through the film in my head now, trying to remember everything. Oh, it's Lorbum asking about Wonder Woman. It's good! Exclamation point. Spoilers. So yeah, I wanted to talk about. You're welcome, Notherson. I wanted to talk about two things, because these are both interpretive. You lied. I'm a spy. That's what I do. I'm a liar, a cheat, and a thief. Do you think Ares was actually responsible for, in a more literal, magical way, influencing the war forward? Because, in my opinion, that's pretty interpretive. There's a lot of evidence throughout the whole film that the answer is no. And I mean, World War II still happens, right? But there is one scene that makes me kind of raise an eyebrow. It's right at the end. Well, not right at the end, but pretty much towards the end. Hey, Dakota. Where, he's dead. Ares has been destroyed. And the German soldiers start taking off their gas masks and embracing each other. I have heard people interpret that scene to mean that the, shall we say, influence has been lifted. I'm not going to give my opinion yet. I was curious what you guys think. I admit I actually don't know Wonder Woman's own mythos particularly well. Most of the Wonder Woman stuff from the comics or from the shows that I like is more connected to her being a part of other characters' story arcs, Justice League kind of stuff. Don't mistake me, I actually like Wonder Woman, and it's nice to see a heavy who isn't just a flying brick, but yeah. See, here's the thing. I think the answer is both. I think I know that the Great War was terrible. There's no second guessing this. The Great War was something that has shaped all of history since it. Everything about today was shaped by the Great War. This is not exaggeration. This is not even debatable. I think the Great War was such a war of such terrible nature that it's specifically the terrible nature part that was being, shall we say, coaxed by Ares. But I don't think he started it. And I don't think he was deliberately causing it. Or I'm saying that wrong. I'm kind of with Luxie is what I'm trying to say here. I don't think that Ares manipulated people into starting the war. I think that the war started, and then Ares made it worse. That's what I think. And so, on an individual level, the random grunts who are just doing what they're told to for whatever reason, having that feeling kind of lifted would probably be like, oh, thank God this is over. And of course, the armistice was signed like within days of it. Yeah, exactly, Notherism. That humanity started the Great War, but Ares made it worse. Ares made it the Great War. And everything horrible that came of it. I have no doubt whatsoever that the film Ludendorff and Dr. Poison would have both been just as cartoonishly evil without Ares. What I also think is that they wouldn't have been able to accomplish as much without Ares. And despite his statement, despite his comment about I didn't start the war, all I did was give them the tools. No, that doesn't fly, Ares. You were pretty much deliberately handing phasers to cavemen. Conrad von. Damn it, Yuri. uh, but yeah, the I don't even know what that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I do like that they kind of leave it interpretive. It's kind of up to us to determine how that worked. The other thing I wanted to comment on with regards to the or Bolter's tapes. Oh God, there'll be no more wars after this one. Yeah. There was actually one person I saw who firmly believed that the only reason the war happened was because of Ares. Was like, so why did World War II happen? Clearly, Ares survived. Was that person's argument? And I'm like, what? I mean, granted, this is DC. Even Superman survived. Ugh. But really, that's no. Then again, who knows? Maybe they'll go with that. I don't know. By the way, I mentioned little things in this movie. One of the really nice tiny touches, which makes perfect sense, of course. That's why I like these tiny touches, was that at the end of the film, Wonder Woman is comfortably and casually typing on a laptop to send an email to Bruce in gratitude for the original photo which he found for her. Now, if you don't get the point, obviously it's been several years since World War One, so obviously she would have a chance to acclimate. But that is my point. She is no longer the fish out of water. That's the whole point. She started off, and this is her origin story and showing where she began, and we see little tiny details in the very beginning and the very end showcasing what she is now and what she will have to be when I forget his name. It's not Darkseid. It's some other random moron shows up with the I can't think what they're called, the blah 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 demons. I was actually thinking of it during the film. Anyways, Justice League movie. That could be Arenaru. And they do kind of have World War II as an opening now, if they wanted to go. Parademons, thank you, parademons. Couldn't think of the freaking term. Yeah, exactly, P. Watson. Because, of course, Cap got frozen, but she did not, because she doesn't age. So she has actually moved forward and now knows how to do things like use a laptop and send an email to Bruce Wayne. I admit I have not, Progue. I'd have to see some pictures or something. Let's see. Here's a question. Do you think they spent too much time before she left the island? Just an opinion question. Do you think too much time was spent on that part of the film is what I'm asking? No, I have to wait. Well, we're not going to see Darkseid in Justice League. It's some idiot. I can barely remember his name. In fact, I can't remember his name. It's one of Darkseid's cronies is going to be the villain in Justice League. We already know this. That would be amusing, Lex, yeah. Scarlett Johansson, Progue? So far, I'm agreeing with you, by the way. I don't think they should have cut it. I think it was good. I think they spent pretty much the perfect amount of time on it. We see her as a kid. We see her learning stories. We see where she's getting. We see where she's getting the whole perspective on life from. We see that her aunt wants to train her. We see that her mother does not, and that they're keeping something from her. And they pretty much flat out lie to her on several occasions. Then she sees, oh God, one of these days I'm going to figure out his character name. Chris Pine's character comes sailing through, fleeing the German forces, having done something a spy should not have done. And then yeah, from that on the pace just was perfect in my opinion. Steve Trevor? Is that right? Yeah, there's some issues with rights as always when it comes to a solo Batman movie. I don't even want to touch that, to be honest with you. But yeah, I like I like everything about that. They took their time. We see Paradise. We see their lifestyle. We see how skilled and trained they are. We then see them die to German arms. We see the Germans, invade, and all of the possibilities that come from that. We see the lasso of truth in action. That was a nice touch. I'm a spy. I'm a spy. I love. I know this sounds like a weird thing, but it showcases how good of a spy he was that it took the lasso of truth to get to admit it and what I mean by that is under the specific circumstances. You'd think logically, I'm on this strange island that didn't exist before, where people have magic water and amazing skill and are all women. It wouldn't really be a big deal if I mentioned that I'm a spy, but his discipline and that built-in discipline to always hide the fact that you're a spy was so strong that it took the lasso to pull it out. That was a nice touch, and once again, one of those little things that emphasizes how really roaring. What was it? Emphasize how good of a spy he was. Yeah, they're trying to build up to Darkseid just like they're building up to Thanos over in MCU. Were building up to Thanos. They kind of stopped building up, which is funny, but I'm not going to get into that. Well, it's funny you say that, P. Watson. Me and Pax both think they're going to do the same thing they did with BVS and release a director's cut, which is going to be longer. A extended edition, just like Lord of the Rings had, for example. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have any solid information on it, but yeah, it would be really cool if that was true. Because I agree, I think the film could have had more. I'm not complaining about what's there, other than the slow mo, which drove me crazy. But I do think they could have had more. Like they could have just added here and added here and added here. Only on my channel can we talk about a film and discuss the Treaty of Versailles and other World War I, World War II topics in chat. That's not a complaint at all, by the way. I love it. You guys are awesome. You're the best freaking audience. Another thing I really enjoyed about the film a lot was the emphasis on camaraderie. I kind of already mentioned this, but there was a huge amount of camaraderie on both sides, actually, and a lot of almost desperate camaraderie, I think is the way I want to classify that. Not just, of course, the scene I mentioned where they're, huddling together about to die, but in a lot of different circumstances, we see soldiers or troops or civilians or just people who are just kind of clinging together and trying to unify because of just how bad things have gotten. There's also this really great scene. I know this sounds like a weird thing to talk about in relation to camaraderie, but it's the victory scene, Victory Day, when they're going through London, and there's just people in the streets. Now, I've only seen pictures. Obviously, I was not alive during World War I yet. I need to go back through the loop once more to get to that point. See you around, Caspian. But there's that scene just struck me. Don't mistake me. I'm glad we don't have moments like that in real life anymore. But I want you to picture what it would take in real life now to bring hundreds, if not thousands, of people to abandon their jobs and their duties and whatever they're doing that day to just go in the streets and scream, "This is awesome." To really embrace that kind of celebratory feeling. Now, again, I am glad we don't have that anymore. because the only way to really have that is to have something equally terrible to be celebrated. Something so horrible, something so terrible that when it is removed, now we can move in and be and the removal of this terrible cancer is what causes us to celebrate like that. And yeah, World War II ending. I do have family members who are still alive today who were out in the streets when World War II was ended. You know. Yeah. Now, Squigert has an interesting thought there. Meeting intelligent life from another star. Let me give you a slight modification. Meeting benevolent intelligent life from another star. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my grandfather all served in World War II. My grandfather on my dad's side was actually one of the mechanics in the... I suddenly can't think of the name of it. The British Air Force who were running screening missions along the English Channel to go against the Luftwaffe. My great-grandfather actually served on a U-boat in the Pacific Theater. And my grandfather, or excuse me, I'm saying that wrong. My other great-grandfather, wrong direction. My other great-grandfather served in the front lines during the Italian campaign. The Royal Air Force, that's them, the RAF, thank you. The Battle of Britain. The very, very long, very interesting Battle of Britain. Yeah. Anyways. So Roaring asked an interesting question. What did Diana do between Dawn of Justice until this movie? Now, based on how she's presented back in BVS, I'm thinking she kind of did what a lot of people do. What a lot of people do under the whole, I live forever thing. Like we see this in the Highlander series all the time. They just kind of slowly built up a financial base and became to the point where she has access to tons of wealth and resources and her own little castle, and just kind of established herself, making an infrastructure, in other words. I have a very strong feeling that based on the way her character was portrayed, the woman who refused to do nothing in the trenches, that she has been active this entire time. I don't know how or why, but I would imagine she's been active. I would be astonished if she was not involved in World War II. Hey, Yuri. I got nothing. Look, I'm just saying that if they surrendered... Yeah, the Ottomans were actually a cameo in this movie. I kind of like that. Yes, it would, Leander. Speaking of which, this is really kind of a side note. I'm looking forward to Dunkirk. I'm not sure I should see it. I'm the kind of person who sees that kind of things and it just absolutely emotionally devastates me. Hell, I was hit really hard by this movie, by Wonder Woman, because of how they portrayed the Great War. I'm not sure I should see Dunkirk, but it looks like it's really well done. So, we'll see. Anyways, any other thoughts? Anything else I missed? Let me run through the movie in my head really quick while you guys say anything. Well, I wait 30 seconds for a reply. I talked about that. I talked about the fish of water. I talked about the technology variants. I talked about Ludendorff. Talked about Toxin. Talked about Ares. Fun little side story. When we were building up to the movie, we were debating who the villain would be. Like, everyone was like, oh, Ludendorff's the bad guy. And I'm like, Ludendorff's the bad guy in a Wonder Woman movie? What I find funny about that is within, like, the first 2 minutes, they're like, hey, by the way, Ares is the bad guy. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, they did a good job with the German army. I actually agree with that. They did a good job in general. The Lads Brigade, they did a good job with the British side and the German side, both, in my opinion. I mentioned how this film, in many ways, is kind of typical. You notice how the final fight there between Ares and Wonder Woman was a completely bog standard, typical supervillain fight, right? I'm okay with that. as long as it's well presented. And I do think this one was pretty well presented. It did make me kind of go, okay, now they're going to throw them into this. Now they're going to knock them over there. Now they're going to blow them this. You know, it was just kind of a back and forth thing, as it usually is. I did like how the whole time Ares wasn't really fighting her full tilt, because that wasn't actually his goal. I mean, this whole time he's like, look, you should be on my side. And they did kind of establish that, not only because of the whole movie with her general naivete, with her lack of understanding of the complexities of humanity, but here's a far more significant point. They, as they're doing that final bit leading up to it, she starts talking about, look, I killed Ares, and she thinks she has. She's, of course, wrong. But, you know, I've killed Ares. This should be gone. You should be okay. You're free. You're free from his corruption. Because she had such a complete black and white perspective on things. She was so stuck. Good guys, bad guys, nothing else. Nothing else. And you could see it. She does a great job of portraying someone who is witnessing the truth and can't quite comprehend it. It's like, no, this can't be the truth. No, this can't be the truth. This can't be the truth. You don't understand. I killed Ares. You should be free. This can't be the truth. And I love how she did that scene. And then there's that great scene where Chris Pine, Trevor, is like, look, you're right. We don't deserve you. I don't deserve you. I'm not a good person either. I gotta go. I've got to do something about this. Come with me. And she's like, no. And he's like, okay. I gotta go. And then he just goes and he tries to deal with it. Just, wow. That whole scene was really well done. And of course, my point for bringing this up is most of the time, yeah, exactly, Roaring. Great line, by the way. Most of the time, a villain tries to convince the hero to join them, and it's like, oh, come on! The hero's never going to go with that. But I like how Wonder Woman spent most of the movie, and had a significant scene right before that, to help establish why Wonder Woman might go along with this, might actually consider it. And honestly, the only real reason she doesn't is because of him. Because she remembers what he said to her, and she decides to see, in her own terms, the light and the dark, the reason why humans are good, in addition to great. Which is, again, very typical, but I don't care, because it was very well presented. So, good stuff there. Well, funnily enough, Leander, he kind of did, if you think about it. He did help their team quite a bit. By the way, am I the only person? So, okay. There's a scene where Ares Lupin is on the phone, David Thewlis, and he's like, under no circumstances are you to go to that thing. Under no circumstances. Yes, I know, Andrew. There's nothing I can do about this. There's nothing I can do about this problem with the chat thing, okay? It's this, or we don't have the chat, or we have crummy chat, or we go back to the old plugin where we have no chat and I have to reboot it every 5 seconds. I got nothing, Andrew. It's out of my power. There's this scene where he's like, no, don't do it. And by that point in time, I had come to believe that he wasn't Ares. Like, by that point, I had convinced myself that Dr. Poison was Ares, not him. So I'm looking at that scene like, oh, so he's on a phone line. So, of course, he's saying, no, you can't do this for deniability purposes, and because he actually wants them to do it. Because everything about his dialogue seemed to indicate, you know, under no circumstances are you to go to coordinates 5538 and destroy this exact box, which is labeled A73. You know, it's that kind of, don't do this thing I'm telling you to do. Wink, wink. What I find even funnier about that is that in hindsight, since he was Ares, that is exactly what he was actually doing. He was like, no, you mustn't go there. Don't do this. Wink, wink. Okay, they went. Good, excellent. Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Um, I feel stupid for second guessing myself. Every time I second guess myself, I'm wrong. Or to be more accurate, I was right originally, and then I become wrong because I second guess myself, like almost like 90% of the time. Good movie, Tigzar. Good movie. I recommend it. I don't have anything else to add. Does anyone else have anything else to add before we go conquer the world as the Ottoman Turks? I could see that, P. Watson. I could see some parallels there. But it's most in her case, I think it's mostly a perspective of ignorance as opposed to a perspective of superiority. Because the whole reason the Q looked at that was because, well, we're better than you. We're better than you. So we get to judge you. Whereas Wonder Woman was naive and therefore assumed they were better. Hey, Shadow Machine. He's called me by the right name. Um, Shut up, SJ. I'm sorry. So Squidgart asked something that reminded me of something else I actually wanted to talk about. The music. One of my biggest complaints about Wonder Woman's presentation in BVS was they would only I forget who. It's under the Hans Zimmer name. I'm not sure who actually wrote it, but someone wrote Wonder Woman's theme song for BVS. I recommend you go listen to it. It's actually really good. But you probably only remember the first 10 seconds of it because that's all they frickin' played. And so in BVS, every time she showed up, it was that da na 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 da. You know the tone I'm talking about, right? They just kept doing it over and over. It get tiresome. It's like, oh my god, is this her theme song? Just that same freaking da na 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 da over and over and over. I didn't even realize until after the movie came out that there was like a full several minutes after that of her theme song, which is good, other than the da na na na. The point with regards to Wonder Woman the movie is they only actually did the da na 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 like twice, and each scene was significant. They had good music throughout, but every time they pulled that out, it was significant. It was when she was just. They did it once when she decided to storm the trench line. When she decided to storm the machine gun nest in the trench line, and they did it once when she was actually when she had basically jumped into a building with German troops occupying it and just started wrecking face. So, anyways, that's all I got. Anyone else? Anything else? And lore mums. Sorry, I'm talking about the movie live on stream, comma, believe it or not. Period. What more do you want from me? She's literally asking me for spoilers. She did, Roaring. I actually agree with that. I'm gonna have to take your word on that, the viewer, because all I remember hearing is da na na na. Like every time the camera kept going back to her and she was doing that pose after she and it would go back to her da na na na, and then the fight would go on and go back to her da na na na. That's how granted, I haven't seen it for a little bit, but that's how I remember it. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off, take a very brief break, and then go conquer the world. So, see you around, guys.